I'm going to show you a trick. Teach it to you, too. And when your friends see this trick, they're going to go, oh!
Now then, with fingers crossed, we ask for the lights to go on in our auditorium. And have we got with us this evening a James Dunleavy? I wonder if one of our security gentlemen can bring you down here to me, because I've got something very important to say to you. Stand here, sir. Are you the genuine, one and only James Dunleavy?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Now listen, you wrote to me some time ago asking if you could see how the BBC television cameras worked because you wanted to be a cameraman. Is that so?
Yes.
We have got one of the world's top television cameramen on the world's #1 crew, and this gentleman's name is Bob. I wonder if you could show him how to be a cameraman, and he can use me to focus up on and come out, right. And then I'll read his letter, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave him with you.
Right.
Hello, Mr. Darling.
Once again,
Good evening.
shh, good evening, greetings to James Savile of the Eve.
Have you got any questions to ask the Dalek? Quickly.
Do you ever go on holidays?
Holidays? What is holiday?
Dear Jim, please could you fix it for me to meet Shakin' Stevens and dance next to him, love, Jill Watson, age 8 1/4.
This old house makes me true. This old house makes me hot. This old house was home comfort as we fought the storms of life. This old house once where we left. This old house didn't let us shop. Now she travels.
The veteran disc jockey, charity fundraiser and television personality Sir Jimmy Savile has died at the age of 84. He made his name first on TV's Top of the Pops, and then the children's show he pioneered, Jim Will Fix It.
I think the thing I remember is Jimmy fixing it for generations of children and young people, turning a television show into a real event in people's lives, an event that they will always remember.
The fella could get used to all this. I think I really could get used to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, all we can say is good night from all of us here at Top of the Pops, and it's #1 time, and of course, if you believe me now, it's from the one and only She Can't Get
On air, you know you're on air. You're with a very high-profile, popular presenter. He's literally got his hand where it shouldn't be, and is assaulting you.
I actually couldn't do anything because there was all people around, and we were on steps, and he was there, and I couldn't move because there was too many people around, and the camera was right up in front of us.
Did you tell anybody after it had happened?
Yeah, I told the man that was next to the cameraman, and he just told me to get lost.
Do you not believe, come Judgment Day, you're a Christian, don't you believe you put God in somewhat of a dilemma?
Yes.
There's Jimmy Savile, the good man that gives money to charity, that helps young children. And there's Jimmy Savile, who flies in the face of everything that's written in the New Testament about sexual promiscuity.
Come Judgment Day, you, me, I mean, stand up everybody who was so good that they will walk straight through the golden gate. I mean, rather than any of them here, I would like to meet you. I think we've all had a hard time. Now, me, when I stand in front of the table, and St. Peter's there, he says, you are not coming in. And I'll say, well, why not? He says, because you're a villain, and he'll show me the debit side, and I'll say, hang about. And I'll show him the credit side, and he'll say, does that mean anything? And if he says, that means nothing, well, I've got him to break his fingers.
But is it just a facade? Or the Playboy image?
Yes. Yes,
or is that answer part of the facade?
No, you can't win here. It's all part of the facade, and I'm very boring.
Now, it's never been played on television before, but it has a particular relevance. Let's listen to this.
So who else is on the goner list?
Oh, it's endless, believe me. No, I'd like to kill Jimmy Savile. I think he's a hypocrite.
Weren't I right?
I bet he's into all kinds of seediness that we all know about but are not allowed to talk about. I know some rumours. I bet none of this will be allowed out.
In 1978, at the height of the Sex Pistols explosion, there you are saying about Jimmy Savile, he was into all kinds of seediness that we all knew about. We weren't allowed to talk about it. I know some rumours. So you had heard the kind of thing that we now know about him, or stuff like that?
Yeah.
I think most kids did too.
Why, 10 years ago, did a reporter from the Scottish Sun go around a wedding boasting that everybody at the Sun knew about the Savile necrophilia story? Why did the News of the World and the Sunday People, which knew about this decades ago, not act? And who vetted the knighthood? Coco the Clown?
That particularly lurid accusation that you've just brought to many people's attention is one that it's not been in the public domain.
I know that. Why not, News International? You have a case to answer. The entire society was gulled by this man, including the Prime Minister who invited him to Chequers, including the royal family photographed with him. He got a knighthood in this country. He got a papal knighthood. This is not just the BBC. This is history. This is a man who conned an entire society.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of True Crime. This episode we are going to be looking into the life of Sir Jimmy Savile, OBE. A prominent figure in British culture for decades, he was beloved by children, teenagers, adults, and even royalty. As the host of Jim'll Fix It, Jimmy made dreams come true for hundreds of children all over the UK. And as the host of Top of the Pops, the UK equivalent of American Bandstand in the States, he maintained the attention of the teen audience. He was not only a famous figure in British pop culture, but an incredible philanthropist that raised exorbitant amounts of money for charity and hospitals. This gained him both the attention and the affection of multiple members of the royal family, as well as Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. His career lasted an incredibly long time, beginning in 1958 and lasting until 2007 when he made his final TV appearance. He passed away in 2011 and the nation mourned. Everyone, everywhere was heartbroken that the man they had affectionately referred to as our Jim had passed on. Well, not everyone. Allegations of child abuse had bubbled underneath the surface since 1963, and while masquerading about as this beloved personality that he had fooled the entire country with, he was actually using his position of power to get away with unspeakable evil. In contrast to the zany, endearing persona that he had displayed for the public, Jimmy Savile was a vile, disgusting psychopath with a sadistic appetite for children. It is alleged that he abused over 400 children in the span of his 49-year-long career in public broadcasting. While it appears that many people had an idea of what Jimmy was into, there seemed absolutely no will to do anything about it, if not an outright effort by some to protect him and sweep it under the rug. Because of these unfortunate circumstances, we have no true psychological evaluation on Jimmy Savile in the context of being a legitimate psychopath. To add to this, not much is known of his early life, and the legitimacy of much of what we do know is questioned due to Savile's lifelong habit of lying. Because of these factors, our dive into his life will not be as deep as my previous subjects, and we will focus instead on his interactions and deceptions of the public, his crimes that we are aware of, and his victims. What we do know about his childhood is that he was born the youngest of 7 to a Roman Catholic family at Consort Terrace in the Burley area of Leeds, West Riding of Yorkshire, on October 31st, 1926. He grew up incredibly poor during the Great Depression. His father Joseph worked as an insurance agent, and his mother Agnes, whom Jimmy affectionately referred to as the Duchess, raised Jimmy and his siblings. Jimmy described his father as scrupulously honest but scrupulously broke, and vowed to have the things in life that evaded his father's reach. His early childhood was fairly uneventful, other than a severe bout of pneumonia that he claimed to have almost died from, though that claim is unsubstantiated. At age 18, he began working in the mine as a Bevan boy, until receiving a spinal injury that left him using a metal corset and walking sticks for months. After this, he worked various jobs before trying his hand as an amateur athlete, primarily bike racing and wrestling. He said himself that he did not necessarily care about winning these events. What was most important was getting his face out there. He began working as a radio DJ in 1958 and quickly made his way into television, though he continued to work in the radio business for most of his career, hosting such programs as Savile's Travels, Speakeasy, The Double Top 10 Show, and The Vintage Chart Show. He got into television in 1960, hosting the show Young at Heart. As I said, I don't want to get too deep into every single facet of his radio and television career, otherwise this video would be immensely longer than it already is. During his decades-long career in broadcasting, he was an incredibly successful philanthropist, estimated to have raised at least £40 million for charity over the span of his career. Though there are many organizations and health facilities that he raised money for over the years, I think perhaps the most prominent would be the Stoke Mandeville Hospital, where Savile worked as a porter for many years. Though this charity and volunteer work made him look like a wonderful, kind, and caring person, St. Jimmy, as he was often referred to, was actually using this time at the hospital as a hunting ground. He preyed upon countless patients at the Stoke Mandeville Hospital, children. He was even nearly once caught, and would have too if not for the direct negligence of the staff, failing to protect their patients from this monster. Some nurses told their female patients to pretend as if they were asleep whenever Jimmy would come around. Jimmy was also close friends with the chief mortician at Leeds General Infirmary, and during this time rumors also began to come out of Jimmy Savile engaging in inappropriate behavior with the bodies in the mortuary, including performing sexual acts with the bodies himself, arranging the bodies in lewd positions with each other, as well as stealing glass eyes to use for making jewelry. Pathologists speculate that in order to have been able to commit these acts in the state of rigor mortis that they were in, that another party may have had to have been involved. I found nothing else conclusive on this subject. John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten of the UK punk band the Sex Pistols, began making public statements regarding Savile as early as 1978. He had a girlfriend who had told him of abuse that she had suffered at the hands of Savile as a child, and his outspokenness resulted in the Sex Pistols being banned from BBC radio play for literally decades. Savile was also involved in a lawsuit with UK newspaper The Sun regarding some allegations of abuse levied against him in an article they had published. In all reality, there were many victims that were willing to come forward, simply no one that was willing to listen, and many that were willing to bury his crimes. Whether this is due to friendship, other people's involvement in the crimes, or fear of repercussion for coming after someone with friends in such high places, we do not know. Savile's charity work put him on the radar of the royal family, having good friendships with Princess Diana as well as Prince, now soon to be King, Charles. Savile also developed a close relationship with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, reportedly spending as many as 11 New Year's Eves with Thatcher and her family. I am sure the finer details of Savile's friendships with these higher-ups in the British royal government, as well as how much they knew of Savile's predilections, will never be disclosed in their full truths. Jimmy Savile was found dead in his penthouse in Leeds October 29, 2011, 2 days before his birthday. He had recently suffered a bout of pneumonia, and no foul play was suspected in his death. Immediately following his death, investigations went into effect involving his abuses, and victims began to come forward, though no official publications would come out until the following year. Once the allegations began to trickle out into the media, police investigations began. Eventually, in 2013, an official police report was released, revealing allegations from over 450 victims over the period of 1955 to 2009, ages at the time of assault ranging from 8 to 47. The suspected victims included 28 children under 10 years old. 214 criminal offenses were recorded, 34 rapes having been reported across 28 police forces. In 2022, a BBC presenter named Mark Lawson spoke about his experiences with Savile and about rumors spreading around many BBC personnel, not at the top level, about his abuse and rumored necrophilia. Lawson stated, "The true story is his victims, and how the BBC, Department of Health, Conservative Party, Catholic Church, police forces, local councils, and libel law let them down. A monster for whom the British establishment, political, royal, broadcasting, ecclesiastical, medical, charitable, provided a dazzling shield."
Who's your best pal, tell me?
I'm not telling you. No, Desmond.
He's not?
He is.
No, he's not.
Get off me.
Because he's a married man.
Do you care?
Yes, you do.
Get off.
I won't. Not
I'm
until,
just squashing.
not until you say me.
Me.
So I promise
I promise.
that you, Jimmy Savile,
You, Jimmy Savile,
I'm the only one.
I'm the only one.
In my life.
No, you're not the only one in my life.
And no Edmonds and all the lovers is definitely not him. Go. Who's your best pal?
You're the pal. Get off my backside.
Eh? Beg your pardon. In front of your money and daddy? Goodness gracious.
So James Savile, OBE.
Correct, yes.
Good evening.
Is he here? Yes.
He is indeed. Right in front of me. Right. There was something kind of special, maybe even unusual about your relationship with your mother.
Well,
After
not
all,
unusual.
when she died, you sat with her for 5 days.
That's what it said in the papers.
Was
that
that
don't
true?
tell me you're going to believe papers. So naturally I went there every day, just like everybody else did.
But the impression we got was that you wanted to be, and were, really on your own with her for most of that 5 days, that you sat with her for a long time because something very important had happened and you wished to come to terms with it. Being a DJ, of course, didn't just bring you fame, it brought you girls. Lots of girls.
Did it?
Well, I think it did. Well,
Goodbye.
You said
Nice
it
to see
did.
you.
We spoke to a long-time friend of yours.
Did you?
Who knows about these things.
Oh.
Bunny Lewis.
Oh,
Here
yes.
he is.
Yes.
Funny little hotel tucked away up not that far from Tottenham Court Road, where Jim used to go. Whereas other disc jockeys, which he was at the time, used to go to quite smart hostelries around the town, Jim would go to this very small one where he'd have his bicycle tethered at the back. Whether that was for a quick getaway or not, I'm not sure. And we had a few friends there. One in particular, Jim might remember, called Norma. I don't know whether you'd like to ask him about her.
Well, Sir Jim, I think I would like to ask you about Norma. Tell us.
I don't mind getting Bunny off the hook, because he's married. Now then, his girlfriend was called Norma. And he has now fixed it for me to get him off the hook with his missus. Yes, Norma, a lovely girl. And the faintest idea who she was.
So you don't remember Norma?
Of course, like it was yesterday, and it wasn't Bunny's girl at all. He has never been unfaithful in his entire life. It was me who was beastly with, what do they call her again? Norma, yes.
Maybe there were too many. We also spoke to Charles Halligan.
Oh, did you?
Your close friend and colleague from Leeds General Infirmary. He told us this.
He's always had an eye for the ladies. Young ones as well. I say young, I mean, you know, the proper age. 16 upwards. And he's always had one.
Is he right? When it comes to women, you've got a short attention span?
No, women know too much. I'm all for girls that don't know too much. It's a different class, you see.
Have you had lots of female
I would hope
relationships?
so, because being alive a long time, I would have hoped that one would have had lots and lots of them.
But we're not asking for names, we're just asking for the general principle.
So, I mean...
We just want to know if you live this sort
Well, I
of
would say-
playboy life of the DJ.
Yeah, give or take a few nice ladies. But I mean, you know, a gentleman doesn't ever speak of ladies. I don't know where you come from. I mean, I don't know what your circles are, but my circles, ladies are very... You don't grass on them.
Why have you shied away from close relationships with women?
I'm quite happy to have a few close relationships tonight, if anybody's not spoken for.
So why in the past...
What are you doing after the Joe ladies? A few close relationships, I'm all for it.
I'm sure. Is it just a facade? Or the playboy image?
Yes. Yes,
or is that answer part of the facade?
No, you can't win here. It's all part of the facade, and I'm very boring. Thank God.
What are you most proud of? You've done so many things in your life. Aside from your charity stuff, actually, because that's the most honourable thing you do, and you do it so brilliantly. I don't think there's anybody in show business raises more money and gives more money away than yourself. Professionally, what are you most proud of?
Waking up this morning. Simple, sensible, honest. But I think that waking up this morning was one of the star parts of my life. And this morning I woke up, let me think, I was on my own. And that is tremendous.
How often do you wake up in the morning and have to check to see whether there is somebody on the other side?
Well, not very often, because what happens, I'm a pushover, and if somebody comes and knocks on the door and says, I've lost my keys to go in, I'll say, step this way. And they say, I thought you'd say that. It's not my fault. I can't help it. I'm a single fella.
There's nothing wrong with it. You haven't broken any laws, have you?
None whatsoever. And if I do, well, I'll stand for that as well.
You talk about waking up in the morning. What about not waking up in the morning and being back with your mum? Do you think about that?
No, she'll have gone to heaven. I mean, I've lost my life a few times, one way and another, believe me. But I'm not quite sure. The religious department at BBC once asked me if I'd write a book. So I said, yes, all right then. So I wrote a book, and the fences there, but we called the book God'll Fix It, right? And it sold for over nearly 40 years through Mowbray's, the religious publishers. And it's an odd book, but very palatable, which is why it sold for all those years. And the last page is that question that you just asked me about not waking up. And if I arrive at the gates of heaven and St. Peter says, you've been a very tricky man, you can't come in here, I'll break his thumbs. Because I'm qualified to do that, because I earn a living being a wrestler. And I've never had a problem yet with anybody whose thumbs I've broke.
You talk about that, though, as if there's reasons for you going downstairs. Do you have a conscience about that? Is there stuff you've done that you think will deny you access to the big man?
No. I never brought any harm to anybody. I've never bad-mouthed anybody. It sounds a bit yucky, but it's my nature, it's my lifestyle, and I never thought there was a profit in being bad. There might be a profit for a few days, a few weeks, even a few years, but sooner or later you get your comeuppance. And so the best thing to do, I mean, I know a million bad people. I know them, but I've no desire to be one, only because it's not my nature. If it's not your nature, then you're not, holier than thou or gooder than thou. It's just not your nature, full stop.
Jimmy Savile, at the bottom of it all, past the zany facade and eccentric mask he wore for the public, was a repulsive, sadistic psychopath that spent his entire career in the public eye giving hints and clues to who he really was. It was almost as if he got a sick sense of pleasure in teasing the world with the truth. The fault and blame for the abuse of his hundreds of victims not only lies on the shoulders of Jimmy Savile, but on every single person that turned their back and shut their ears to over 4 decades of whistles being blown. I suspect that as the people involved in his life pass on over time, we will learn more and more of Savile's crimes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this episode took a little longer to make than my last 2. I had an incredibly busy weekend full of graduation ceremonies for family and Chuck E. Cheese birthday parties for the kids. I appreciate you taking the time to watch True Crime, and I hope you join me again for the next episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you can, and please consider signing up for my Patreon. For just the price of 1 coffee, you can help support the channel and gain access to bonus content such as community polls for my patrons, my transcripts for each episode, full versions of the original music that I produce for the show, and the occasional bonus episode. Thank you again for watching, and always remember, monsters from the grimiest places often have the prettiest faces.